The knock at midnight. The rain had been falling for hours, a relentless, cold sheet that blurred the edges of the world. Outside the window, the street lamps struggled to pierce through the fogged air, their pale orange halos shimmering in the downpour. Inside, Amir sat hunched over the kitchen table, nursing a cup of lukewarm tea, the muted hum of the fridge the only sound besides the rhythmic drumming of rain on the tin awning. He told himself it was just another storm, but his unease had started the moment the electricity flickered an hour ago. That kind of darkness, the kind that swallows a room whole, had always unsettled him. At 12:07 a.m., the first knock came. Not a polite, hesitant tap, but a slow, deliberate thud. It echoed unnaturally in the silence, as though the rain itself had paused to listen. Amir froze, the ceramic cup halfway to his lips. He lived alone at the edge of a quiet street. No one came visiting this late, especially in weather like this. Another knock followed, heavier this time, carrying with it a faint metallic rasp, as if something hard had brushed against the wood. He stood, every movement stiff, and approached the front door. The peephole revealed nothing but the warped shapes of raindrops racing down the glass outside. No figure, no shadow, just the glistening street. He told himself it must be a neighbor, perhaps someone stranded, but a cold knot formed in his stomach. His instincts, the same ones that kept him from walking dark alleys at night, whispered, "Don't open it." The knocking stopped just as his hand hovered over the latch. For a few minutes, Amir stood in the dim hallway, listening to the rain resume its steady whisper. Then, faintly, through the hiss of water on concrete, came something else, a dragging sound. A slow, wet scrape along the porch, as though something heavy was being pulled across the wood. His breath quickened. He didn't want to believe what his ears were telling him, but the sound grew clearer, moving from the left side of the house toward the right. The dragging stopped, and the silence felt too deep, too intentional. Then came the third knock, not from the front door this time, but from the kitchen window. The sound was sharper here, a direct tap-tap-tap on the glass behind him. He turned slowly, his heart pounding. The rain distorted the outside world into moving shadows, but one shape didn't move with the wind. It was pressed close to the glass, unmoving. Its head tilted, as if it could see him through the dark. Inside, the voice dissolved into a sound somewhere between a chuckle and a wet gargle, then silence. The rain seemed louder now, hammering the roof, drowning the edges of the world. Amir stepped back toward the hallway, thinking he could retreat upstairs and barricade himself in the bedroom. That's when the third sound came, one he hadn't heard all night. The faint, unmistakable creak of wood from inside the house. His stomach dropped. It wasn't coming from the doors or windows. It was coming from the living room. He moved slowly, flashlight beam trembling across the walls. The sound came again, a deliberate step on the floorboards, followed by another and another. When the beam finally cut across the living room, it landed on nothing. The space was empty, save for the faint swinging of the curtains from a window he knew had been locked. Cold rainwater dripped steadily onto the carpet beneath it. A blur of movement to his left, and then it was there. The figure, hunched and impossibly thin, its soaked clothes clinging to bone. The skin was pale to the point of translucence, stretched too tightly over its face, the jaw slack and crooked. Its eyes caught the light, dull, cloudy, yet locked on him with unblinking focus. In its hand, clutched in long, bony fingers, was a shard of rusted metal, the source of the earlier tapping. Amir swung the hammer, but the thing moved unnaturally fast, sidestepping with a twitching motion that didn't seem entirely controlled. It lunged, and for a moment he felt its cold grip on his arm, stronger than it looked. Adrenaline drowned his fear. He drove the hammer into its side. The thing let out a sound, not pain, but something like surprise, and staggered back toward the open window. It didn't climb out so much as melt into the darkness beyond, vanishing into the rain in seconds. He slammed the window shut, chest heaving, and backed into the hallway, the hammer still in his hand. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, when the rain had stopped, he checked the yard. The only sign that anything had been there was the back gate, still swinging open, and a trail of wet, pale handprints leading away into the woods. The circling for a few seconds, Amir stood frozen, staring at the empty, rain-slicked window. His ears strained against the muffled roar of the storm, searching for any trace of movement outside. Then he heard it, a faint, wet squelch on the porch boards, followed by another and another. The sound was slow, methodical, as if whoever, or whatever, had been at the window was walking along the side of the house. Dragging something behind them, he backed into the hallway, his socks sliding slightly on the wooden floor. The thought of going upstairs flickered in his mind, but the narrow staircase would leave him exposed. He instead ducked into the small utility room beside the kitchen, peeking through the narrow slats of the blinds. The rain blurred most of the yard, but movement caught his eye. A pale limb slipping out of sight behind the corner of the house, too long in proportion, bending oddly before vanishing. His stomach knotted. This wasn't just a stranger in the rain. Something about the shape was wrong. The footsteps resumed, now shifting from wood to the softer thud of wet grass. They were circling. He imagined the figure moving slowly along the walls, searching for an opening. The scraping sound returned, sometimes against the siding, sometimes against the glass, as though testing the structure's weak points. Then came the sound of the back gate creaking open and staying open, its hinges groaning in the wind. His pulse thundered in his ears. He needed a weapon. Rummaging in the utility room, he found only a rusted hammer and an old flashlight. He gripped both tightly, switching off the room's light so the inside of the house became a dark shell. If the figure was peering in, at least it wouldn't see exactly where he was. Still, every instinct screamed that staying in one place was dangerous. Then came the sound that nearly broke him, a low, deliberate breathing. Not from outside, but from somewhere close, muffled yet heavy, as if filtered through wood. It was coming from beneath the floorboards, under the very room he stood in. Amir's hands went cold. There was no basement in this house, so whatever was breathing down there wasn't supposed to exist at all. The breathing beneath the floor faded into the storm, but Amir's skin still crawled with the memory of it. He stepped back slowly, hammer raised, trying to listen past the pounding of his heart. Then, thud, a sharp, heavy impact rattled the wall of the utility room. Something had struck it from outside. The sound came again, closer to the window this time, each blow testing the frame, making the glass tremble in its mount. He backed into the kitchen just in time to hear another noise, the faint creak of the front porch steps. A second later, a shadow slid across the frosted glass of the front door, distorted by rain. The shape lingered there, as if listening, and then a long, thin object, maybe a stick, maybe not, began tracing slow circles on the glass, squealing faintly with each turn. Amir's gut clenched. It was toying with him. The sound stopped abruptly, replaced by the muffled clink of metal on metal, the door handle. It twisted once, twice, then rattled violently before stopping again. Silence. He didn't breathe. He was almost convinced it had moved away when something scraped against the back door at the far end of the kitchen. The realization hit like ice water. There wasn't just one point of entry under threat. It was moving between doors, testing them both. He dashed toward the back door, flashlight in one hand, hammer in the other. The beam cut through the darkness just in time to catch the handle turning on its own. His breath caught. He lunged, slamming the bolt shut, just as the entire door shuddered under a heavy hit. The impact was strong enough to make the frame creak. Another hit followed, harder, the hinges whining under the strain. He knew, one or two more and it would give. Amir backed away, heart pounding, trying to think of a plan. The front door, the back door, the windows, every entry point was vulnerable. He considered running upstairs, but before he could move, a new sound froze him where he stood. From the darkness beyond the back door came a voice, low, slow, and wrong, like a recording played at half speed. Leeing. The shape at the window Amir didn't move at first. His mind fought against what his eyes were trying to make sense of. The rain-streaked glass warped the figure's features, but the stillness was unnatural, too rigid, like a mannequin left outside. The tilted head seemed to rest at an angle no human neck should hold for long. Then, as if sensing his gaze, it shifted slightly. The movement was subtle but enough to send a jolt of ice down his spine. His first instinct was to back away, but the layout of his home betrayed him. To move toward the bedroom meant turning his back to the kitchen window, something his gut refused to allow. He glanced toward the counter, spotting his phone, but the screen remained black when he pressed the side button. Dead battery. No landline. No neighbors within shouting distance. The storm outside felt heavier now, almost like the rain itself was trying to muffle the world. The tapping started again. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was deliberate, measured, like a message being spelled out slowly. He realized with a sick twist in his gut that the sound wasn't coming from fingernails. It was sharper, harder, metal. It scraped against the glass faintly between taps. In the dim kitchen light, he thought he saw the figure's arm twitch, but the darkness and water made it impossible to tell. Summoning a shaky breath, he stepped closer, not out of bravery, but because the thought of standing still was unbearable. When he reached the window, only a few feet of rain-smeared glass separated them. The figure's face was partially obscured, but he could make out pale skin and something glistening at the corner of its mouth. For a moment, Amir thought it was rainwater, until the red tint caught the light. Before he could process the sight, the figure leaned forward just enough for the glass to rattle faintly under the pressure. Then, without warning, it lowered itself, fast, and disappeared from view, leaving nothing but the distorted reflection of Amir's own startled face. The sudden absence was somehow worse than its presence. He didn't know where it had gone, only that it was no longer in front of him. Somewhere outside, hidden in the downpour, it was moving again.